As we are in the middle of the Four Nations break with games actually starting yesterday on Wednesday, the Carolina Hurricanes have been going through a lot of transitions this year on the ice and off the ice. And one gentleman who I got with me today has been there and done that on the marketing side for the Hurricanes. I am super excited to have Dan LaTorraca joining me on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Hours. Also do some AHL content over at the Calder Times, the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. But let's be honest, guys, you're not here for me. You're here for my special guest. I am super excited to have this guy, and he's a former vice president of marketing and branding at the Carolina Hurricanes, now the director of marketing for Zoomph. He's been on the Surge Cast. Now he comes on Locked On Hurricanes. I am super excited to have friend of the pod, Dan LaTorraca, joining me today. Dan, how are you doing?
Great, Zach. Awesome to be here. And don't sell yourself short either. You are one of the most plugged in folks with the Canes and an essential follow across all socials. So thank you to for you, the hard work that you do to keep the fans kind of connected all season long and then in the off season too.
No, I really appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you, with all the stuff you've been doing with the Hurricanes before and now with Zoomph. And I do want to talk about that because I think it was a shock for a lot of people, especially for me and everyone over at Surge Cast and everyone who's kind of interacted with you on social media when X or Twitter, wherever you want to call it, isn't what it is most of the time. But what's that been like for you transitioning from working with the Carolina Hurricanes, and in the past you also worked for the Carolina Panthers, so you've been pretty plugged into the Carolinas for a good number of years. But what's that been like with that transition going from sports to now work for a company like Zoomph?
Yeah, it's been great, but it has been a transition. I've worked for sports teams now for almost 15 years, and have loved every minute of it. Have done some really, really fun things that I'm proud of and wouldn't trade for the world. But there are pros and cons to every industry, and one thing that I was starting to kind of deal with in the sports side was you deal with the same things again and again. And I felt like I wanted a new challenge and to learn new things or to make up for some lost time where I had some sort of gaps in things that I was learning how to do and understand. So loved my time with the Canes, and obviously I love my time with the Panthers too. I mean, Lord knows I'm a fan of the team now. They're the whole reason I live in the Carolinas. And the Canes, the reason why I got to come back here and put roots down. So loved the organization. The only thing I loved more than the organization was the people I worked with there, my team. Deeply, deeply care for them and miss them a lot. And we still stay in touch a whole lot and are always kind of texting and having lunch and whatnot. But it was time for a change for me to do something different and to learn and to grow. And I'm not as young as I used to be. And back when I was in my 20s in the Panthers and even my early 30s at the Canes, definitely had more energy and more time. And now I got 3 kids and a whole lot more going on and also want to do different things. So it came clear to me that it was time to do something different and hopefully I could stay in sports. So when I was evaluating a few different opportunities, a lot of them were outside the Carolinas, and I had my concerns about that, moving to different cities to work for another sports team. It's just, I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. And the Canes had been a customer of Zoom's for years. They actually, in ways, helped me save jobs during the pandemic. I'll get into kind of how they work and what they do in a second, but some of the value they do is they do help you better monetize and draw value out of your social and broadcast too. But at the time it was social. And during the pandemic, when there was obviously no hockey games being played, we as in the Canes, still use we a whole lot.
Right.
that habit. We had to drive any value we could for the organization and do a whole lot of make goods for our corporate partners. And social was something that we could leverage to make that happen. So Matt Suter, myself, and the design team and the video producer and Michael Smith that were there, we hit social and web hard, and we tried to drive as much value as we could with our platforms. And at one point, Zoomph, we weren't a customer yet, came out with some sort of report about which hockey teams were driving the most value for the corporate partners during the pandemic and with social in general. And that was something that I could circulate internally to show, like, hey, these are jobs we need to keep. We're driving you here, and that kind of aligned with the mission that I had when I got to the Canes anyway, that I really wanted to make sure that we were monetizing social properly, that we were getting the maximum value for our corporate partners that were attached to things, whether it was the score graphic or an email campaign. And we went through a few different options and how to figure out how to do that. We brought in an agency and they helped a little bit. This was back in 2018. And we brought in a few other vendors, competitors to Zoomph, and they really weren't a good fit. I'm not going to name them on air, but we kind of wasn't a match. And then in 2021, we brought in Zoomph, and they were amazing for us. Essentially what they do, in addition to some pretty robust social media measurements and analytics to track our own performance and kind of tag it and understand it better to see what's resonating with our fans and what's not and what could we be doing better. It gives us two metrics that I find to be really, really important. And one is the social value, which essentially is like it takes into all the metrics into account, the impressions and the engagements and everything that makes a social post measurable. And it basically converts it into a score that's the advertising equivalent. So how much would you have to pay for standard advertising rates, whatever that CPM rate is, in order to get that same level of visibility from social? And basically it tells you, hey, we're driving good value here, or this wasn't that valuable content. And then the really important piece for the Canes in this case was the brand value. And Zoomph uses like an AI computer vision model basically to detect logos, whether it's in a video or a broadcast or a graphic or even in a text mention in the social post. And using the metrics that are associated with the post and how it's performing can tell you how much value that brand got. So when we have Lenovo on the helmets or Nucor on the jersey patch, or even if it's your final score graphic presented by Kia, it is able to all that information and organize it in a really nice dashboard, and then help the partnerships team report on it, help the social team report on it. Makes life easier for everybody. You can export stuff, nice, neat dashboards and all that. So you can get all that data and understand, hey, how can we sell this stuff for more? How can we make sure we're making as much money on it? How can we make sure the sponsor is happy? And then sponsors use it too. Invisalign, one of the Canes' biggest partners, uses it. They're all involved in the NFL a whole lot. They sponsor a bunch of athletes. They want to make sure they're getting good ROI on things. So long way of saying it was a company that I really, really liked to work with at the Canes. But then the people there I fell in love with too. Their CEO, Amir Zanozi, has become a really close friend over the years. So when him and I got to talking that I was sort of exploring new opportunities, we kind of started realizing like, hey, there could be a really good match here. And it's been great. I won't lie. There's been bumps in my transition. Going from marketing a sports team is very different than going to a tech company of 50 people. But I'm passionate about the product. I'm able to use my relationship in the sports industry to help support things. And I'm working with really, really great people that are so solutions-based and so smart that they've been really, really great in this transition. So it's been fun. And the kicker is with all that and all this great stuff I'm learning and able to do, I get to spend more time with my kids and my family, and reinvest in relationships that, hockey season is long, man. I don't got to tell the amount of, different platforms you're on and how you cover the team, hockey season. I mean, look, it never really ends, but it's essentially in August. And doesn't, if you're a good team, like the Canes have been for the past 7+ years, or you're going till June, and hopefully the Canes are going to away in June. So it's a and I'm excited to be a fan again. Haven't been that, in a long time, fully. But it's been great. I've loved it. I'm learning so much, and the best part is the Canes are a great Zoomph user, so I still get to take a look at all the great stuff they're doing, and they're doing a great job for sure across social branding and all that. It's awesome to see it from the other side.
No, 100% for sure. Yeah, love the insight because you don't really know like what goes into all the dynamics and the tracking of how logos look or how you get the branding out there. And I follow you a lot on LinkedIn, which I love all the stuff that you post with all the analytics and just, hey, look at this is what's going on with branding and stuff like that. What does it say about with the Hurricanes specifically? Because you got Voodoo Ranger, you got Kia, you got Invisalign and all that stuff. Well, how big is that to have like sponsored companies on just posts like that? And I guess it kind of leads into this where we kind of talked pre-show about maybe finding a way to have more sponsored streaming for games, like how the Dallas Stars and the Anaheim Ducks are being able to do free streaming for fans.
Yeah.
What does it say about going from sponsored postings to probably sponsored streaming to maybe help get the game more out there? Because all we keep hearing is views are down. Yeah. But how do you transition from just posting to maybe streaming to grow in this game even more? That is hockey.
It's a great question. I mean, on the social side specifically, it's always a challenge to properly monetize social. That's always been an uphill battle. Every team I've worked for, so any tool you can invest in to better manage that and build that relationship between your corporate sales team, and your digital and your creative team, it's going to be worthwhile. But to your point about the broadcast situation, it's fascinating. We're at such a unique time with what's gone on with the RSNs over the past couple of years, especially, across hockey, basketball, baseball, everything that's gone on with Bally's/FanDuel Sports. And it's no secret, as a lot of teams have been competitive, just like the Canes over the years. But as the challenges grow in the RSN space, it gets more and more difficult to consume games, and yes, there's the D2C app that FanDuel Sports has, and there's some really great solutions out there. But it's so hard to know what is going to be the long-term solution. And we've already seen a lot of teams sort of make that jump. You mentioned the Dallas Stars. I believe they were a former Bally Sports team. They got off there. They use a model right now that it's a free ad-supported D2C app. I think they're over the air too. The Phoenix Suns are another one there too, where I think they even mailed out digital antennas to people.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
ticket members, which is brilliant, and they paired that with the D2C app. So, but the point is, like with RSNs, and part of the reason why this landscape has been so challenging the past couple of years is they've been paying teams and rights holders a lot of money to broadcast these games. And it's simply not sustainable based on the way the consumption has been, the way the other challenges exist, piracy or fragmented viewing options. So a lot of these teams may not be making as much off their broadcasts in the next couple of years. And if they hop off and do their own thing and get off the kind of the RSN model, they're going to need to find ways to generate as much revenue as they can with their broadcast. And that's where, not to get all salesy with Zoomph, that's where a tool like Zoomph can come into play there, where you can better track all the assets within a broadcast and understand the value that they're driving, so you can build a better rate card to generate as much revenue as you can. Now, the trade-off there too is that these teams that are kind of doing their own thing and getting off the RSNs, they have the potential to reach more people. So there's the trade-off of, okay, if we're over the air, people just need a digital antenna. If there's a free ad-supported D2C app, that's a whole lot more people that can now watch it on their phone, on their smart TV. So the numbers should be good, but the money won't be there yet. They have to build up that model, and that's where the right investment in people and tools and process is going to come into a big play there, where they need to make money off this one. And look, we're seeing it in baseball, right? The whole reason Juan Soto got traded to the Yankees is the Padres were losing revenue because they got off their RSN. They're making a whole lot of money off their broadcast rights. They didn't have that same revenue stream coming in at the same rate. They're not able to maintain talent and kind of retain talent the same way. So, it's going to be very interesting in the next couple of years, the teams that adopt early. And look, there is still a path to victory with the RSN model too. There absolutely is. A lot of teams are going to say like, hey, I prefer to have that check for whatever the amount of $1 million is, and we'll figure out the carrier situation or the whatever to make sure we're reaching as many fans as possible. There's still a path to victory there. But I do think a lot of the teams that are adopting this model of like, hey, we're going to try to get as much reach as possible, hit our whole DMA, the Vegas, the Dallases, the Phoenixes, all those teams like that, and are finding ways to not only properly get as much money out of the broadcast as they can, but find new and unique ways to engage their fans through broadcast. Like we're seeing teams try to copy the Manning cast model, right? This complimentary broadcast. And can you imagine, Justin Williams and Eric Tulsky talking about the Canes while the game's going on? Obviously you have your Tripp and Mike are amazing, and Hannah, they're so great. But then some people want like a different broadcast, right, just for a few minutes or for a period. Oh, maybe you have this complimentary piece there. So I'm not saying the Canes are exploring that, but right. I think the Canes are very much plugged into the situation. And they certainly benefit from being on the same network as the Braves, who carry so much weight. They have so much reach. There's a lot of equity in that brand, a lot of value they drive too. But the Canes do great. And I'm very excited to see what happens over the next couple of years with this, but got to be making money off it. I mean, every sports team I've worked for has always said, number one goal, win games. Goal 1A is make money. And gas is a big driver for that.
No, 100% for sure. And you know what? That leads perfectly into our next conversation of, their Canes and their branding and just being able to market themselves and being one of the teams in the NHL on social media and in the sports world where it's like you will get great interaction. So guys, stick around as we will jump into Canes branding here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. And, perfect segue from segment 1, talking about, branding and all this other stuff, to the Carolina Hurricanes and what they've been doing, with, Dan, you at the helm for a long time now, with a transition into the next phase of what they're doing. And, we saw Cause Chaos last year. Now it raised up. I guess a lot of people want to wonder what goes into that. I definitely want to pick your brain on this. What's that transition like, or what's that process look like when you're like, maybe hopefully not year to year, but maybe like a more sustained, hey, let's keep this hashtag longer than just one season. But like, what's that transition like, being able to have to go into every season, trying to come up with a new brand tag, different types of ideas for videos, being able to like market and do this all other stuff around the Hurricanes and try and grow them within their market and maybe even past the Carolinas.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and that's where I got to give a lot of credit to Cato Cataldo, the creative director, and Ashley and Jack and Allie and Lauren on the design team, and then you have Alec and Devin and Haley, and I'm sure there's new folks there too that I just don't that do a lot of work in conjunction with the marketing team and others to kind of cultivate and brainstorm and ideate around what could be something that is a good slogan or a good message to focus a campaign around, that's something that can really resonate with fans and kind of grow that sense of pride in there. And I had certain criteria that meant a lot to me, that I felt that like this was important to sort of factor in to what that is. And, for Raise Up specifically, I wanted something that was really part of the DNA of the team. And I wanted something that had, a call to action to it, but that felt like regional, felt kind of part of the Carolinas, felt part of the team, because I think that is more natural and can lead to sort of a better performance and a better adoption. Now, Cause Chaos was great. I love the creative. It was such a left turn, and I think that's really necessary sometimes to just like explore where you can go with a brand, and sometimes take chances. And look, sometimes it works, Sometimes some things don't work with it, but at least you try something and then you kind of have a better understanding of where the boundaries are. And Cause Chaos, I think, there was some great execution there. I think by the time you got later in the season, there was a better fan embrace of it. I think a lot of the pieces of that campaign were cool, some of the retail elements and the video pieces. But I think that also taught us, like, hey, we definitely probably need something that's a little more sort of already in the DNA and already part of the Canes. So that's where, Cato and his team identified Raise Up. And the second I heard it, I was like, that's it. Boom. I love it. And they were explaining kind of a few different ideas to me. And some of them I got, and some of them it took me a little bit. Like, they mentioned a couple of things about helicopters, and I wasn't getting it at first. And all of a sudden it was like, like, spinning it around. But so it's a lot of, this is where the importance of investing in creatives matters, because they see things differently and they have good perspective on stuff. And they always have a good understanding of these things that could really resonate strongly with fans. And I love Raise Up because, look, it's a fan voted goal song. It's something that is like, it is the Canes, it's Petey's song, obviously, and it belongs to the people and him, but it is something that's been so embraced and in a way owned by the Canes fans and Canes organization too, that it felt really natural. And then one of the big pieces there was we had to get Petey involved in some way, to use the song just to get the rights and to get his blessing on it was a big piece of it. And there were some pretty cool ideas we were messing with. We were talking about like almost a re-edit of the song to give it that like movie trailer sort of style that we see so often now.
Right.
Yeah, and that could still happen. So spoilers, maybe. But there's different ideas, and it's a lot of work goes into it of like securing the rights and creating how it's going to look and feel and how it's going to be used. And I like, as a fan and as a marketer, I do like some longevity in these slogans. So I'm the Canes, I'll love and support them no matter what. But one of the things when I was still there that I was kind of pushing was, let's build something that has lasting power, because I think that really will help with adoption and embracing and owning this. And look, I was spoiled. It's a matter of perspective. When my first sports team job was with the Carolina Panthers, and they had Keep Pounding, and it wasn't like actively used as a marketing piece or a fan rallying piece. In 2010, maybe it was before I was there, but it definitely wasn't that 2010 season, which was surely a hot topic this week in the Carolinas. But Keep Pounding was to me it's still the perfect sort of team slogan, because it has a deep meaning and a deep history. So it's real, and it has such like power behind it because of its meaning and its history. It's something that you can use when things are going really good. You don't want to let up like that 2015 Panthers team. You just keep pounding that other team. When things are not going well, you can still use it as a motivational piece of just to keep getting up and keep pounding at something, keep working. So and that was something you can't touch that. That is such an important part of the brand for the Panthers, and it's perfect. So I'm glad they're working with that and factoring that into who they are. But I was so spoiled with that because there is no creative ideation, there is no changes. Yeah, we had a few sub campaigns, one Carolina, this and that. But the Canes are in a different situation. The Panthers, they're not the NFL, and while because of that, it takes time to find identity, and it's just a different sport. You have more games and more things going on. It's different. So you take time to figure out what works. And I'll always be partial to Take Warning. That was something that, I threw out there before I even set foot in Raleigh. It was when I was still moving from Brooklyn. And that one, it comes from a poem my mom used to tell me. So I'll always love that one. But I do think it's important to test these other ones. And once you find something that kind of really clicks, you got to invest in it and have it kind of weave itself into the fabric of the organization and the fans and all that. So, Raise Up on shirts and flags and, the decals for your car, and work it into the in-game and anywhere you can to make it sort of that rallying cry for the team. And Raise Up is something that I think can be similar to Keep Pounding. Yes, it doesn't really have that same level of emotional history as being tied to Sam Mills and all that, but it's still something that is part of the Canes DNA. So I love what they're doing with it. I also think it's a phrase that you can take a lot of different creative approaches with, and right now it's with the arrows and everything, but there's so many different ways you can take it. And there were so many different things we looked at in terms of different styles for the campaign. There were some sort of really refined, almost like tech looking things that were simple and clean, and there were more sportsy things. It can evolve. So that's my long rant on Raise Up. I love what they're doing there. The in-game videos, the work with PD, and just the content they're putting out there. Anything that you see, that you fans see, that is behind the scenes, that is one-on-one with a player, that is, is driven in that form. A, that's really valuable, but B, it takes a lot of work to do that. And it all happens in the midst of like a million other requests going on. Ticketing needs this, sponsorship needs this, entertainment needs, everybody always needs something. So any content they do produce outside the game window, that is that behind the scenes stuff, that is a supreme labor of love and a testament to the hard work of the social team, the video team, the creative team, and others, and the PR team to kind of create that environment. And they've done a really good job of establishing relationships with the players to kind of create that stuff there. So whenever I see anything that's behind the scenes, it makes me smile extra, because we pushed really hard for that for years, and it takes a while to get there, and they do such a good job with it. So I'm loving seeing that.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it's like, even like when Seth was out, Seth Jarvis was out for a bit with his re-aggravated shoulder. Like, they went to his house and was like, "Hey, can we, just sit with you and get your perspective of a game?" And you hear him just kind of just chirping everyone. He wants to fight Fishy, which is just absolutely taken off, which is absolutely fantastic. But then you get all access. When Jacob Slavin or Jalen Chatfield or all these guys. I think that's something fans really want to see, because I know, like, you have all these all or nothings, and I think the Red Sox are doing some this year where it's like it's the clubhouse, and it's like going through all of last season with them. And I feel like, you have, I think Columbus has, Beyond the Battle, and
the Wild had that great. Well, the Panthers hired that guy. Too, but there is. Like that behind the scenes, the show, the blueprint with the Panthers. Not to harp on the Panthers too much, but
I was excited when that was came out. When I heard that was coming out, I'm like, yes,
like the Hard Knock style stuff, where teams have such great access, and they're never gonna put stuff out there like what we saw with the Giants this year, which I know they're probably not happy with a lot of that stuff out there with the Saquon and all that. But that behind the scenes content, it's such an important part of humanizing players and building connection. And I remember being in a league meeting a couple of years back, and they were talking about the topic of the CMO meetings I was in, were like, how do we market stars more? What are some other? It was more of a brainstorm session, because every league has that same thing, whether it's the NFL or the NHL, and every fan base of every league says, "Oh, you got to market stars more." So like, they're aware of that. Everybody's aware of that. It's not as easy as it looks. But the thing that I would harp on was hockey needs to attract more casual fans. When I see hockey fans, I see like, those are the sports fans, and they're awesome. They do have a bad habit of eating their own sometimes, but they're so passionate and so knowledgeable. But casual fans, they really don't know the difference between a third line wing and a first line wing, and if that third line winger has an amazing personality, dive into that, and at the time, Seth Jarvis was that. Obviously, he has emerged into, someone that I think could be like the mayor of Raleigh. I mean, he's amazing. He's so talented. I mean, there's so many talented guys in the team. Jarvie is so special because of not only his talent, but his personality. He's a gift. He's a marketer's dream. But those are the players the NHL needs to identify and invest in, and they're doing a good job of that now. But those are the ones where a lot of teams have these players that have personality, that they may not be the all-star, but that's okay. That personality can attract fans nowadays, and that's important. And if they develop into a star, that's a bonus. If they don't, they're still a fan favorite. So that's something. And now the Canes do a really good job of celebrating a lot of their players, and they have really great personalities on the team, between Marty and obviously Jarvie and Chatty and all those guys. PK, there's some really good personalities, and they do a good job of highlighting those. And it's hard in hockey. I remember when I first got to the team, one of the big pushes was, I just want these guys posting on social more. And that was an uphill battle. There were some older guys on the team that were just like, that's not what they grew up in. But now as the team younger, or more people get on the team that have grown up in that world and are spending their time on Instagram, I think we'll see even more player personality stuff. And it's exciting to see.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. Yeah, yeah, just be able to do that. Like you said, even behind the scenes stuff. Like we're not talking like super long 23-minute things, but like just something
Mhm.
where it's, hey, everyone talks about, oh, well, these guys are just players. It's like, well, they're humans too. So
Yeah.
I think if you add that human element, I think you get that deeper connection of, hey, these guys are going through this and all that too. And it makes it more fun because now you're kind of diving into the team, and I want to get, the Hurricanes are well known for their interactions with the social team, back to fans and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What for you? I think what makes the Hurricanes so unique in the fact that they post all this amazing content, but they also have these great interactions with the fans to
Yeah.
still keep driving. Because I know you guys probably say just the constant driving of the social media content. Because I keep seeing graphics at the end of every season.
Mhm.
Hurricanes are always like top 3 or number 1 in the NHL for gaining money through their social accounts of the interactions, or just getting more followers and stuff. Like, what's that to
Yeah.
you meaning so much for the Hurricanes to be able to pull that off?
Yeah, there's a couple factors to it. First, the Canes organization and the region that they're in and the fan base, they're so unique. And I've worked for the Panthers, obviously, the Nets, the Islanders, and the Canes, and there are some similarities between obviously the Panthers and the Canes fan bases. But the other two teams I worked for, radically different. And I think there's a few factors that make this market and fan base so unique. And one of the things that was special about the team that I didn't realize till I got there was the accessibility fans have to staff and to players. And it does feel like a team that is truly one with the community. Now, is there opportunity to do more stuff in the community? Sure. But like, as far as the interaction level, that was always something I really, really liked. And I think some of that also helps when the team is good, the fans are especially engaged. So I was always very lucky to have winning teams to work with. I've been very spoiled in my sports team career. But a big focus of the social strategy when I got to the Canes was going to be, all right, we're going to cut down on a lot of the crap that's being posted. Like, there was too much stuff going out on social. So it's going to be quality over quantity. And then the next piece of that is going to be, we are going to be as responsive as humanly possible, because I want to know how the fans talk, so we can learn their language, what matters to them, and that'll help us craft our voice. But also, I want them to feel loved and appreciated and valued. And that's something that a lot of other sports teams just don't do actively enough, is respond. I don't mean aggressively, like aggressive, but just like actively. And the Canes still do it really, really well. So credit to Matt and Mackenzie and Haley and everybody over there on the social side. That's such an important part of social media, is to be responsive. And then, of course, over time, we would try to invest more in the creative resources to get better quality content there, and more access, and kind of push the boundaries with the stuff and the language we were using. And Zach, some of the ideas that we've had, like, they'll never happen, but there are some insane things that we would brainstorm back in the day. Like, we had I don't want to spoil too much here. We had a big meeting about how we could monetize profanity. And using that, like, can we play with this? Can we drop that bomb? Like, so, and
that would have been wild.
like, can we do it? Like, it's going to make headlines. So,
Yeah.
there were a couple times, like, just one F-bomb a year. But obviously family friendly, want to maintain that too.
Right.
But those elements, I think, helped set a foundation to sort of maintain. It's almost like a momentum thing. Once you build the right piece of social, and if the team remains relatively competitive, you can sort of maintain those metrics at a high level. And the one that for the first couple of years there that we always looked at was engagement rate. And what that basically is, it definitely is skewed a little bit more towards audiences that are smaller, which is Panthers at the time when I first got there, the Canes, as well. But it's something that to me says, all right, the content that we are putting out there is clicking with our fans. It's resonating. And if we're leading the NHL, or we're number 1 or number 2, and granted, we were always really high there. I'm sure we still are in the top, at least top 5, if not number 1. That's something that we can use with partners to say, like, hey, this content engages. Like, if you want to work with us, or we're sponsored this and that, like, we want to work with you. This is how we do social. This is why we win. And that was something we looked at. Now, as the audience size has grown and the resources have grown, sort of the metrics that you can use as your measuring stick can change, and it can shift from something that is really that benefits from your audience size, like a percentage, which is like engagement rate, to like the total metrics. And I'll point to last month. Obviously, that trade was huge. It was. I remember my wife asked me, because we were just hanging out that night. I was like, oh man, the Kings made a big trade. And she was like, do you miss like being involved in that? And I was like, no, I don't. And I was connecting with some of my staff over there to kind of like see how they're doing and holding up and, and all that. They did a really great job with all that stuff. But in January, they led the league. And I got to check the other metrics. I was just looking at Twitter yesterday for them. But in total interactions, total impressions, it's hard to do when you have teams like the Leafs and the Flames and the Rangers and stuff like that. So the strategy they have is working, and the fact that they're going to continue to kind of make noise with the total numbers at a monthly or a season away is just a testament to how the fan base has grown, the passion of them, and how the social strategy has impacted. And the beauty of what they're doing now, it's not just limited to social. The way that team has grown, you have like a great SMS platform now where they treat it like Twitter, which was great. That's awesome. Really engaging. So y'all that aren't signed up for the Canes SMS alerts, go do that. Email is great for them. They're so smart with how they do email now. And a lot of that is a testament to Matt and Alex over there. They get it. So I'm proud of them, the work they're doing. They built a really, really engaged fan base, and you're hitting the right notes on the creative side and then the right notes on the technical marketing side. And that's what's generated some good results for them, whether it's record-breaking merchandise sales or social numbers. So it's cool to see, and they do a great job. But the strategy is definitely, it's always going to be quality over quantity, humanize the players, be responsive, treat social like social, and engage those fans the way you want to be engaged, and it'll all work out.
No, yeah, I mean,
unless a team goes on a 2-game losing streak and then everyone's freaking out.
oh yeah. Well, you know what? Once again, Dan, the segues have been absolutely perfect. So yeah, we will talk about the Carolina Hurricanes and their season so far. So stick around, guys, as we'll do that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I know for me, Factor is absolutely amazing. With you take out the stress of cooking.
Yeah.
With some people, you could use a microwave if you want. For me, I like just putting the meals like in a glass dish and just putting it in the oven for 12 minutes. And basically it's really hot and ready. And yeah, it's not as long as a normal prep, but oven, microwave, it works perfect. And they got drinks too, Dan, that I would never even think of, like a carrot orange, ginger. Mm-hmm. I tried that the other day. It actually tasted really good, because I know some people are kind of like, how's that going to work? Or there's like, pineapple turmeric. Like, the drinks are very interesting. I know you've had some Factors. Like,
I mean, bring it back to the Canes. One of my employees there gave me a kind of a promo code, was able to get a couple boxes for free or for very cheap. And I was really I was surprised by the quality of it, especially like vegetables and stuff that were in there. Did a few of those low carb meals there, and I was really impressed with how good it tasted. This is not an ad. I'm not getting paid by them at all.
Yeah.
If you guys want to pay me, go for it. But the quality was surprisingly good. It was good, easy. Every dish was solid. So I was really impressed with them. I actually may have to use this promo code and order a few more now that I'm working from home. I just want to pop something in there.
Yeah, right. No, and that's the really great thing about them too, because I had a queso beef plate that they made with, it was a cauliflower rice and vegetables in there too. Yeah, and it's really good. And that's one thing I like about it too, is it's big enough to where it's like the portion sizes are great. You're talking like 10.5 ounces to about maybe a little under 12, and you feel full. And the quality I was really surprised. I'm like, okay, this is actually really amazing, because you're used to all these different boxes, but
Yeah.
That's the great thing about Factor. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, and just great food in minutes. Like I said, either microwave or in the oven. I will say 375 for 12 minutes. You are good to go with your oven temps. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedon NHL 50 off and use code locked on NHL 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code locked on NHL 50 off at factormeals.com/locked on NHL 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box with Factor. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. And once again, Dan just bringing in the gold of these great segues. And you know what? I got to get your thoughts on the Hurricanes. I know, you worked with the team before. Now you're kind of, back as a full-time fan now. What has been kind of impressing you so far? What stood out to you so far for the Carolina Hurricanes this season? And, just the overall aspect of how this team is with, a lot of people looking at it as a transition year with the guys that left and all the guys that came in.
Yeah, I mean, transition year is a great way to put it. And I think that was the expectation for a lot of folks internally going in, is that there was some tough decisions that had to be made, and certain players moving on and certain things, it's tough, but I think Eric has done a really nice job of backfilling kind of some of those holes and creating opportunity with an eye on the future. So I know on the ice, the team has had some really nice wins. There's definitely been some tough stretches there too. And losing a goalie is never easy, and having players get nicked up and finding time to gel. But I love that they're kind of working through that. And we've always not always, but there's been plenty of seasons where you see the team sort of kind of flip that switch towards the second half of the year. And that's where I think, you got to give the Billy Bernistins credit for how they condition these guys. And for kind of how he leads, where, I know fans are always going to have their opinions on, this and that and power play and scheme and all that, but nobody knows this stuff the way they do. And I think we've seen time and time again that the team rises to the challenge. This generation from, 2018 all the way now to 2025, has not disappointed. Have there been disappointing moments? Sure. That happens with every team. No one's going to win every single game. So I still think they're, Rantanen's finding his way to gel with the team. And that's why I know maybe some fans are getting frustrated. They're seeing Nachas, who's such a talented player over in Colorado. And it's cool to see him thrive there. I still got my bobblehead out here, or somewhere there of him. I love Nachas, and he's playing in a different scheme with different players. Of course, it's going to be different. But I think the fact that you have a team that's willing to take swings, like with Gensel last year and with Rantanen here and Hall and kind of how they want to put a winner on the ice. They're committed to that. I'm a big baseball fan. I'm making about that. There are teams that invest heavily, invest really well. There are teams that don't even touch if there was a salary floor, they wouldn't be touching it. The Canes always been to the Caps. So, I like that they've made the investments. Are there areas of improvement on the ice? Sure. I think but there's also time for that, I think, to gel. I'm excited to see how this team looks in kind of mid-March. Let's get the Four Nations tournament done. That's going to be cool. I'm really excited to watch that. A little Zoomph plug here, where we are going to be pulling a lot of data around that to see how it performs, and does it perform better than the All-Star game last year. I think it's a really cool idea by the NHL. The All-Star game was in dire need of some new energy. That said, a lot of Canes guys are over there. A lot of other guys are getting a chance to sort of decompress and recharge. So I'm excited to see. Let's get a week or two under their belts. And then see what this team looks like in March. And I think that'll be a really good indicator of sort of how good they can do. But that said, transition year, going back to that point there, I think that the cap is in a good spot. There's a lot of there's good young players on the team. There's people that are locked up for a number of years. There's some really talented folks coming up from the minors or overseas that should really help kind of not only infuse some talent in the team, but also address areas where there's that hole to fill, which I think is really kind of illustrates the forward planning of that, the hockey ops department there. So excited to see this year, but I know that next year and kind of the years after that, I think we'll still see the window ain't closed, and that's when any team goes on a losing streak or there's things that don't look right. You tend to say like, all right, is the window closing? Nah, I don't think so. I think the window is like, this year was the window reopening, in my opinion. So excited to see what happens, and definitely I got to go to a game as a fan. I haven't done that yet, so I just haven't had that time in the schedule. But hopefully in March or April, I'll hit somebody up over there for tickets, and I'll get back to Lenovo Center. Still weird to say that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely weird to say Lenovo Center now and say everyone's been used to PNC, and then it was RBC Center, and then Raleigh Entertainment. But yeah, I mean, you're right though. You're talking about a year of a transition where you got to see a lot of guys leave. We got guys coming in. Eric Robinson's really surprised everyone. Jack Roslovic is really surprised too. I mean, you bring in a former first overall in Taylor Hall, which is nothing to snuff at, and you get Mika Rantanen. So yeah, you see a team that's like, it's in a transition, but they're like, hey, let's go and get a big piece, and maybe we can re-sign them. And you said you're reopening a window that wasn't really shut. It's like maybe it was cracked a little bit, laying some air in, but now you're like, let's just open this whole thing back up. Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that people have to realize too. It's like every team has to go through a little bit of a retool or a restructure. But there's before Rod came in, you're talking 5 playoffs.
Yeah,
and that's total. Now we're on a possible 7th in a row. So that's the one thing for the Canes is it's going to be okay. Team like the Jets, who are the President's Trophy team right now, who's leading the whole league, they had a losing streak that was over 4 games.
Yeah,
every team hits a rough spot, and you don't lose. It's the thing is, it's like you have a whole season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not like you said football. Okay, you have 18 games to try to get yourself into the playoff. Or if you're talking marathons, baseball, 162 games, but you could be out of it by June, maybe even sooner. Yeah, so it's well, you got to take every moment as it comes.
And there is room for encouragement. I mean, the free agents that were added, not only were they cost-effective solutions, but they're playing pretty well, which says to me that you have the right people identifying free agent talent there, which is good, and we know there's been, some young players that have come up this system, and now that the Wolves situation is settled, like we'll be able to kind of focus more on development too. And we're seeing some good talented players come up through the minors. These things take time. But I see so many encouraging signs there, and knowing the folks over there and how much they care, and also how smart they are with this stuff, whether it's just, Rod's approach or Eric and all that, and everyone there. Cause Lord knows there's tons of people behind the scenes, from Earl to everybody else that contribute to kind of identifying these players and developing these players and putting people in position to succeed. So I see encouraging signs. There's going to be, as you said, look, even with the Jets, every team that goes through rough periods. But when I see the discussion and the chatter on social, I see 2 things. I see either joy or anger, and both of those are great. That is emotion. That is passion. That's what being a fan is all about. Yeah. It's when you start to see the apathy. That's a problem. Yeah. And you know what? I don't see any of that. So that's real encouraging. So I'm predicting, at least, another playoff appearance. And it's cool to see. Pretty sure the Canes now at this rate are the only pro team in the Carolinas that have made the playoff, if they make it this year, which I'm very confident they will. I guess, what is this, 7 consecutive times?
Yep, 7 consecutive.
Look, love my Panthers, but they're still searching for their consistency. They've never had back-to-back seasons. Love the Hornets too. Obviously they're working to build something there, and hopefully they can kind of get some consistent success there. But and the Courage obviously won their back-to-back championships, but the Canes now are the model of pro sports consistency in the state, and I don't think that's going to be letting up anytime soon. So again, there'll be bumps, but that's what being a fan's all about. I mean, I sat through a 12-70 season with the Nets back in 2009. So,
been there and done that for sure. But Dan, this was absolutely amazing. Thank you for just taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, that was great.
A lot longer than we thought, but you know what? Just amazing, behind the scenes content that I think a lot of people, maybe don't know what's like behind the curtain. So I think that's something that's really going to be, fascinating to hear. I'm really curious to get everyone's thoughts on it. But before I let you go,
yeah,
where can people find you on social? If I know you're
no,
trying to interact.
My job calls for it. I was so close to getting off Twitter.
They pull me back in.
Yeah, and it was. I'm glad I was able to revive it. It's come in handy a lot with my job at Zoomph. But you can follow me. It's just my name on Twitter or on LinkedIn. But hey, give Zoomph a follow. Any brands out there, want to also invest in social analytics, we're here. We're happy to talk. But give Zoomph Zoomph a follow too. We put out some pretty fun social metrics, and we'll have all goes well and the data looks good. We'll be doing some work around the Four Nations report too. So that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on as well. So Zach, you do an amazing job. Thank you for all the work you do to keep the fans engaged and informed. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, but until then, go Canes.
Yes, no, definitely go Canes, and thank you, Dan. And guys, that will wrap up this episode. Keep up with me. I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. Linktree's in my bios where you can find all my articles at the Hockey Writers. Also at the Calder Times. If you want to check out my other podcast, the Surgecast, all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, Locked on Hurricanes, go check it out on the podcast. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review. Might just read on the show. For YouTube, Locked on Hurricanes, subscribe. Hit the bell so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up. Tell me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Canucks to become everydayers just like you. Hope everyone enjoyed this Thursday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Thursday in being in the middle of a lot of Four Nations face-off. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.